Right. Good morning, everyone, once again, and we are going to continue with the study of history. Uh, Again, nationalism in India, and we were trying to yesterday understand what was the background of civil disobedience movement. So, what were the things that were basically causing the civil disobedience movements to stir up? Okay. So, as we saw yesterday, Lord Irwin, he was sensing that the Indians are now uniting, and being the Viceroy of India, being the representative of the British Empire in India, he thought that some immediate steps need to be taken to acknowledge the Indians who are feeling kind of alienated here. Okay, so that's the reason he offered dominion status. Now, what do we mean by dominion status? Okay, this status basically means what? He is, or rather the British Empire is granting autonomy to India. Autonomy to India means that India will have a free way of contesting elections, of electing the representatives and running the government. Okay, but they will be under the British Empire, but they will be still under the British Empire. So understand this. You must have heard there are a lot of autonomous colleges. Okay, now let's say a college A is an autonomous college. It means that the college is free to conduct its examinations. It will be, of course, going as per the syllabus that has been prescribed by the university. So all colleges are basically under a particular university in a particular region. Okay, but a college can be granted an autonomous status by the university. Seeing the development of the college can be granted an autonomous status. Now, what this autonomous status means, that the college will have a free hand in offering courses, in structuralizing the fee, in conducting examinations. Everything will be done by the college, and the degree will be, of course, be as parallel to the university degree. But if at any given point of time there is a dispute regarding something, then the university will interfere and rectify it. Okay, so autonomous status means that during the years the college has gained enough of experience to run on its own without the university interfering in its affairs. Okay, now the college can run on its own. However, in case of a dispute or in case of something which is of a concern, then the university will interfere, and university has powers to interfere and rectify it. So that's what autonomous status means. So Lord Irwin was basically giving a vague dominion status, which means that India will be running on its own. India will be contesting its elections. India will have its own parliament, own constitutional framework. Everything will be by the Indians. However, it will be ruled by the Britishers. However, it will still be under the British Empire. Okay, so a very vague offer. Okay, so because here you are not getting entire freedom, complete freedom. Okay, so if it's the British Empire that needs to be ruled, or rather the British Empire which is ruling, then how come India can be called as a free nation? So that's what he was offering, and it was a very vague offer. See, Britishers were very smart to understand this. Okay, they saw the forthcoming war that was there, the war that was still going to happen. See, the Second World War started around 1939, and the environment was building up. Okay, so there were a lot of countries who were against imperialism. So Europe was basically completely under warfare. Okay, so they understood this, that their Second World War will happen, and once it happens, whatever the consequences, one consequence will certainly be that imperialist nations have to pull off. Okay, so they knew about it. They knew about it that at one given point of time they have to pull off from their colonial empires, and they have to pull off from India as well. Okay, all that matters here is how much can they extend this phase. Okay, they will have to one day pull off from India, but how much can they extend this? Okay, the only way to extend this is to gain support from the Indians. And see, it's like this, and it's like he's throwing an offer which is very vague in its sense. It's like you are asking for 100 rupees from your parents, and for whatever you want to purchase something, they are not denying you, and they are not paying you 100 as well. So what they are doing is they might be giving you 20 rupees. Okay, so fulfill your requirements with this. Okay, so you were asking for 100 rupees, but they have paid you 20 rupees. So somehow it's not going to make you unhappy as well, and somehow you will adjust to it as well. Okay, so that's the purpose out here. Okay, so the Indians were wanting, or Indians now were desiring complete freedom. So this is not a complete freedom that is given. However, freedom is not denied as well. Okay, so it's a very vague offer, and it's just another way of extending their rule in India. Okay, so they have to now cooperate with the Indians. They knew it. Okay, if there is a suppressive or an oppressive factor, then it will backfire. So they knew that let's kind of have the Indians by our side, at least the Indian leaders by our side. See, if you conduct council elections and if you elect Indian representatives, they will be happy. Okay, so if the Indian leaders are happy, if the representatives of people are happy, obviously it will not take much of time to convince the people. Okay, so they don't have to go door to door to convince people. They just have to convince these leaders and put the leaders under them. Okay, so they were very smart enough to understand the dynamics of the political situation in India, and that's why Lord Irwin gave this offer. Very smartly, they had not given any timings for the same. When is this dominion status going to be implemented, or how is it going to be implemented? What are the absolute features? That was not given. So in a sense, it was in itself a vague offer. Okay, but somehow some leaders were convinced. Okay, some leaders were okay. Now the Britishers are doing something for us. They want us to give dominion status. That was a big thing for them. But it was just giving $20 instead of 100. So that was what was offered by Lord Irwin. Okay, now what is Round Table Conference? If you look at it, there were quite a number of Round Table Conferences. Now the idea of Round Table Conferences was to organize this meeting. That's basically a Round Table Conference. Okay, to organize this meeting with elite Indian leaders, all were basically Congress leaders. So to invite them to Britain and discuss, to invite them to UK and discuss with them how to frame the constitution, how to frame the future constitution, what should be included and what not. So all this. So they will call the Indian leaders to Great Britain. They will call them there. They will discuss them. See, every attempt is now being made to have the leaders in their pockets. Okay, that's what how smartly the Britishers were playing. So they wanted the leaders to be by their side, and the general people obviously will be by their side if the leaders are by their side. So they are offering dominion status, they are offering provincial elections, they are offering the leaders to come to Great Britain and discuss it out. So all expenses to be paid by them. So these are some things by which, these are some measures by which the Britishers are pulling the Indian leaders by their side. Okay, now there were young leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose who were smart enough to see this move. Okay, who were smart enough to identify the hidden agenda behind this dominion status or Round Table Conference, and they were the ones who were assertive about and opposed the constitutional system. They said no, we are not. They were unsupportive of these things, so they opposed the constitutional system and they were assertive about it as well. Okay, so within the framework of British dominance, so they were saying that no, we will oppose the British government within the framework of British constitution itself. Okay, so we are not going to oblige to these dominion status or the offer for Round Table Conferences. It's of no use to us. Okay, so they were clearly foreseeing the British manipulation that was happening. Okay, whatever manipulation the British government was doing, they were able to foresee this. Okay, and that's how they denied it. Okay, you can take a snapshot of the same. We'll discuss this more in detail. All right, people, we are going to continue with the dynamics of the political situation before the launching of civil disobedience movement. Okay, so now as you saw, the young leaders who were emerging, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru or Subhash Chandra Bose, they were clearly able to see the motive of the Britishers in offering the vague dominion status or offering for a Round Table Conference. So they were clearly able to see through this. Okay, it's just a kind of let's say cookies is offered to the dogs. Okay, so there's no point in obliging, or there's no point in accepting their offers. So they have a clear motive of extending their rule in India. So they were able to see through this, and they were now emerging as dynamic radical leaders. Okay, so Congress leaders of the Congress leaders, some young leaders like Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose were opposed to the dominion status. So they clearly opposed it, and round table conference offers and demanded complete independence instead. So they were not demanding any dominion status. They were not in favor of dominion status. They didn't want any kind of round table conference. They just wanted complete independence. Okay, so they were very much opposed to these vague offers, and now these set of emerging leaders were very aggressive or assertive in their approach. Okay, they had a clarity of thought. They were very they stuck to their agenda of achieving complete independence instead of getting vague offers from the Britishers. Okay, so they were very they had absolute clarity of approach. Okay, so the aggressive approach of the new leaders was more dominant over the moderate leaders. So they had an aggressive approach, and this was more dominant over the moderate leaders. This was more dominant over the moderate leaders. New ideology was emerging in December 1929. Lahore session, Jawaharlal Nehru, the president, passed a resolution demanding Purna Swaraj. Okay, demanding Purna Swaraj. Okay, so new ideology was emerging, and hence in the resolution in the Lahore session of 1929, the demand for Purna Swaraj was passed on. Okay, the demand for Purna Swaraj was passed out. So in December 1929, Lahore session, Jawaharlal Nehru, president, passed a resolution demanding Purna Swaraj. Okay, so the aggressive approach of new leaders was more dominant over the moderate leaders, and new ideology was emerging. Okay, so Jawaharlal Nehru basically was the president who demanded this in this session. Jawaharlal Nehru was the president, and he demanded Purna Swaraj. Purna Swaraj means complete independence. Swaraj means independence. Okay, and he wanted complete independence. So the resolution of Purna Swaraj was passed on in the Lahore session that happened, which was presided over by the president of that time of Indian National Congress, that is Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So every year they had a president, and at that point of time in that session, Jawaharlal Nehru was the president. So it was decided clearly. Okay, so it was declared that 26th January. So in that session itself, they declared that 26th January 1930 would be celebrated as Independence Day. So they had framed or they had made up their mind that 1930 they are going to achieve. They gave themselves a target of achieving complete independence by 26th of January 1930. Okay, however, it didn't happen. It didn't happen, but it had a significance. We'll discuss about that, right? So they had given themselves a target that let's kind of gun for complete independence, and let's achieve it by 26th of January 1930. We should be working in such a way that by 26th of January 1930 we should be achieving complete independence. Okay, so what happened is, after India actually achieved independence and the constitution was framed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So the constitution was actually framed, this is post independence. Okay, the constitution was actually framed on 26th of November 1949. It was ready to be launched. However, it was suspended till 26th of January 1950. So it was suspended till 26th of January 1950 because 26th of January was the target that the Lahore Session Congress had given to themselves to achieve independence and celebrate independence. It didn't happen, that's a different reason, but 26th of January was so important in their minds that when India actually achieved independence, they thought of launching the Constitution of India on the same date. Despite the fact that it was ready even before that date, they launched it on that date. So this is post-independence story, but still the date 26th January was very significant. Until now we celebrate it as the Republic Day. Okay, so actually it was the first day of independence that Indians had thought about. Okay. Today we celebrate 15th of August as the Independence Day, but ideally it was the 26th of January which was supposed to be the Independence Day, celebrated as the Independence Day. Okay, alright, so a lot of things were happening. So radical leaders were emerging, people or leaders who can see through the British motives were emerging, and at the same point of time when Gandhi was observing all these things, okay, so he saw that there has been a considerable amount of time that has gone by in after the withdrawal of non-cooperation movement. The non-cooperation movement was basically withdrawn in February 1922, and till now India has not got a solid movement once again. Okay, so yes, attempts are being made to oppose the oppose the round table conference, to oppose the dominion status. These attempts were being made, but somehow the entire, so these were attempts that were made by leaders, but somehow the entire nation is not or the people of India are not uniting. So Gandhi felt that there is a need to unite the people of India. It's just a game that is being played by the leaders, okay, against the Britishers, but the entire India or the entire people of India are not uniting against the Britishers. So he felt that there is the need for a movement which has to be widespread across India, as it happened in the non-cooperation movement. Of course, the non-cooperation movement has its own reasons of withdrawal or failure, but still at least it was able to inspire the people of India that they need to unite for a common cause. Prior to that, there was no national movement or a movement at the national level. Okay, so now Gandhi felt that considerable amount of cooling period or resting period has already happened. Now it's time to launch another movement, so to unite the Indians, because that will basically impact the Britishers. So since February 1922, India had not got a national movement, and Gandhi felt that this is the right time to launch the civil disobedience movement which he had in mind. So he saw that leaders are kind of struggling, or leaders are kind of opposing, but nothing on a national level is happening. So he felt the need for, since a lot of time has already been spent by these leaders in opposing all these things that were being launched by the Britishers, so he felt now it's the right time to launch a nationwide movement, and hence he launched the civil disobedience movement. So till now we were basically considering some factors in the political situation of India, how it was basically transpiring, how things were going. So the Great Depression had its own effect in India. It started from America and it actually spread out to all the countries of the world, and obviously to India as well. And since India was an agricultural country, it was one of the worst hit countries, because people only primarily focused on agricultural agricultural products. So obviously people focused on agricultural products, because of which everything went haywire, because they were not getting the value of their money. So there was an economic depression which was racking India all way. So the people were already resentful, people were already opposing it. The Awadh Kisan Sabha was organized by Baba Ramchandra during the non-cooperation movement and was assisted by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru as well. So already peasants and farmers have understood that somewhere down the line the cause of their misery or the cause of their poverty is primarily the Britishers. Okay, so that was there. Lord Irwin was seeing this kind of agitation. Indian leaders are getting aggressive, assertive, so he offered the dominion status, which was again opposed by the leaders who were emerging within the Congress. Then he proposed the round table conferences. What happened in these round table conferences we will discuss later, but these were some offers that were given by Britishers, and now young leaders were able to see that these are just vague offers that are being given. They knew very well that the Britishers have an ulterior motive or a hidden agenda of continuing with their rule as it is for a very long period of time. So these are just some vague offers that they are giving, so that they have the leaders by their side. So they clearly understood this, and hence in the Lahore session of 1929, Pandit Nehru launched the Purna Swaraj movement, or the Purna Swaraj concept. So they had actually given a target of achieving complete independence and celebrating complete independence on the 26th of January 1930. However, it didn't happen. So Gandhi understood that these are certain flaws that are happening, these are certain failures that are happening. The leaders, although they are aggressive in their approach or assertive in their approach, but they do not have a direction to have the entire country behind them. So the entire country needs a movement, and Gandhi realized this and hence launched the civil disobedience movement. So we have kind of understood what are the factors or what was the political situation of India before civil disobedience movement was launched. More on this in the next slide. You can take a snapshot of this one.